Here we are. I've got the crew. Can you believe this? I did this all on my own. Oh, wow. Look at you guys. We are going to have a great live today, live talk with Becky Chernek. And I want to thank you guys for being on tonight. I mean, this is great. Look how cool this is. So before we get started, I want to make sure that everyone has a good understanding as to what I do for the industry. I've been in the automotive industry, oh my gosh, 20 plus, maybe 30 years. Who's counting? Anyway, so I have been involved in automotive retail as well as providing the very best in finance and insurance training for automotive dealers throughout the USA as well as in Canada, and the host of the F&I Today show on CBT Automotive Network. And I did that for 4 years. So here we are. And let me tell you, I provide workshops and dealership training and on actually remote trainings as well and online trainings to make it a little bit easier for dealers to send their F&I people to. So we are here and we are with some of the best in the industry. I am telling you right now, I'm so excited with the auto consultants. And to get things started, I want everyone to get introduce themselves. And first and foremost, we have Jim Thayer. Jim, are you there?
You bet. Good evening.
Good evening. So I want you to tell the group, if you wouldn't mind, tell everyone a little bit about your background because I think it's freaking impressive.
Well, for over 25 years, I was in executive management with Van Tile Group and then Berkshire Hathaway Automotive in transition. And for the last 15 years or so, ran their central region, 34 stores and selling about 10,000 cars and trucks a month, and had a lot of fun doing that. And then most recently was the COO for Peacock Automotive, a group of a dozen stores here in the Southeast, and rebuilt and reshaped a bunch of good stores with some good solid processes, and really lifted them to a point where Warner could leverage that into doing a transaction which recently closed with AutoNation. So It's been fun.
Well, I'll tell you, right, that's amazing. That is extensive. And I think you have seen a lot of things happening in our industry that tonight we can speak to. So I think you certainly know how that whole thing works. So no doubt about that. You know, we talk still about the Van Tile Group, and what they have done for this industry has been amazing with the Berkshire Hathaway Group. But what you've done over the years is certainly amazing. And we hope to speak a little bit on that as well. So Danny Cox, there you go. There you go. So tell us, if you will, about what's all about Danny Cox.
Sure. Thanks, Becky, and thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
So I've been in the automotive business for 18 years. Like a lot of people out there, started on the sales side, moved through finance, spent about a year and a half to 2 years, landed on the desk, working for a group out of Salt Lake City, a great group called Ken Garf Automotive. In 2006, moved into their corporate F&I director role at 18 stores in 2 states.
Wow.
And for the following 13 years after that, was on a bit of a wild ride. We went from 18 stores to 52, became a top 10 auto group. And I basically led the development of the F&I department for that company, and had a lot of fun, and we had a lot of success along the way. And then a few years ago, back in late 2019, wanted to take my experience to the next level. Had an opportunity to meet with Jim Thayer at Peacock, made the move across country to be the variable operations director for Peacock Automotive. And that's where I met these 2 fine gentlemen, Tony Galente and Matt Dykstra. And collectively for us, we built a really good variable operations team prior to the Peacock Group being sold to AutoNation. And we liked working with each other, had a lot of success, and decided to keep this thing going. And so around September, October timeframe, we collectively came together, started the Auto Consultants, and we feel like with our 75 years plus of automotive experience that there are a lot of companies out there that can benefit from what we have done and what we can bring to the table. So again,
Well,
thanks for
I'm excited to have you. And I just wanted everyone to realize the extent of your experience in the automotive industry. And this is just so exciting for me to have you here tonight because, I mean, you've certainly been there and done it, right? You're in retail. Like me, I've also been in retail. And I'll tell you, there's something about it, when you're going into the stores and you're really talking about what's happening in the trenches. It's, one thing about thinking about what happens in the trenches, am I right? Versus what really is taking place in the trenches. And that's what's so exciting about this conversation that we're having today. And so Matthew, right? Is it Matt or Matthew? How do you
Either one, whichever.
like Matthew when you're in trouble?
Right, exactly. My wife says Matthew. I know we have an issue.
Oh, I bet. Matthew. So if you wouldn't mind, Matt, share your background as well.
Yeah, so I actually got started in the automotive industry at 16 years old. Started selling cars, which apparently I wasn't supposed to be doing, but I did it anyway for a couple of years. Went off to the military for a number of years, got out of the Army, had no idea what I was going to do with myself. Talked to my old finance manager, who at the time owned a bunch of stores in Washington. He moved his way up the ranks, and he suggested I get into F&I. I found a school called the Automotive Dealership Institute in Scottsdale. That's actually where Tony and I met back in 2012. We were both putting ourselves through finance school. Both kind of were told the same thing. Hey, you excel at sales. We're going to give you a shot in F&I. And then, oh, pump the brakes. You're too good at sales. We don't want to move you to F&I. So we went out and decided to do it ourselves and kind of climbed my way up through the ranks from there to the point where I ended up being the platform finance and sales director for the last group I was at before I came back to Peacock. And the move back to Peacock it was a phenomenal move for me. Getting to meet Danny, getting to meet Jim, those two brought me in. And then I had known Tony for a long time. Helped Tony get to Peacock a number of years ago when he kind of just walked in, didn't even realize he was getting interviewed, and bam, he got the job on the spot, which is pretty good. But so I've had a long-standing relationship with Tony. I knew at some point we wanted to figure out a way to do something together. I'd wanted to do something this a long time. Danny wanted to do this for a long time. Tony had. And when the three of us got together and put our heads together, we're like, hey, we could really do this. And then when we were able to convince Jim to come in on this, we knew we had something good there. If we can get someone of Jim's caliber that wants to do this with us, we knew we were onto something going the right way. And now here we are today.
That is a really good story. And I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about that, but I talk about the small world, right? I mean, the car business is such a small world. But I'm just gonna hold off for a moment here. And Tony, he's the one who put this whole deal together. So tell us everything about you, Tony.
Oh, you're too kind, Becky.
That's true.
So my background is with Marriott International. I wasn't even in the car business, but eventually after I finished school, I decided that I wanted to do something different and got roped into a sales management training program in Arizona. If the people that are watching from San Chevrolet, they'll be probably laughing right now. But long story short, went into that, turned out to be a sales job. It was just a fancy title to get me in, but really liked the business, excelled at it. Moved from there to trucks only, where I first started out in finance, then graduated to Van Tile after that. And before I knew it, I was over here on the East Coast in South Carolina. My wife and I and our two children love it here, and we've lived in the Hilton area for about 8 years now. But yeah, what a great place to be. Peacock Automotive was a fantastic opportunity for us, and got to meet all these guys. Kind of knew Jim from before when we were in Phoenix at Van Tile, and yeah, it was just a pleasure to get to know these guys more in person, build those relationships, and now we're looking forward to the future and what it holds with our talents and our abilities.
Well, I think that it was really kind of special that you seem to always want to go out there and have an open mind to learn more, be around more information. Well, it's going to, just impact your business. And so I would imagine that's how we found one another, that you found my live talk. And so I'm grateful that you reached out and said hello, and that you attended some of these live talks. Now, here's something really interesting. It's just like I'm can't wait to share this with you guys. But I know Arzu and I know Alan Algren. Algren, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Alan, don't shoot me. Anyway, so I actually presented back in the day there at ADI, and
No
he
kidding.
called me. Yeah, he did. I was his professor at one time. And so I have been preaching to these dealers, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a great way to find the right kind of people to fill those positions, because they have more ambition to succeed. They just, I mean, it's not a cheap course.
No.
You are working really hard for 30 days. And it's accredited, I understand, by the Northwood University. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
So, what you learn there in that 30 days is like 5 years of what goes on in the car business and then some. It is amazing. It really
it's
is.
really crazy with it, Becky. I always say with ADI, it gives you that bedrock of knowledge that everyone looks for in a finance manager. It doesn't always teach you, the best way to sell. It's not, that in the trenches, hey, this is how you really convince a customer, this is how you do it the right way. But it gives you that bedrock. You understand how to read credit, how to structure deals, that important stuff that typically comes with time for a green F&I manager.
That's right.
Now it's the easy stuff you're teaching them in the dealership. It's teaching them, how do you sell? How do you be personable? But you already have that bedrock of knowledge there, which is phenomenal.
That F&I fundamentals, up here on my bookcase, I have their encyclopedia, right?
I have given that to every Green P that I have trained. I have handed them the book and said, I need you to read 40 pages a night. And they think I'm crazy. And then they come back and they're like, holy cow, there's so much info in this thing. It's just ridiculous.
It is. And I gotta give you guys credit for doing that 30-day, because it is, it's good information. It's good knowledge, education, whatever, about what's going on in the automotive retail industry. So I couldn't help but say something about it. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, ADI. Oh, wow. Okay. So I've met some really good people with ADI, some graduates from ADI that have gone on to some big and better things. So go figure. Okay. So let's see what we've got here. We've got some comments going on. So I want to make sure that I say hello to some of the people that are here. And Stephen, Chesson, I think I said that right. Hey, how are you doing? And then there's Christine Farnan. Hello, Christine. I'm glad you're here. We have Andy. Oh, my goodness. Good evening, everyone. Pappenhagen, do I have that right? Is he your buddy? Is he your friend? Benjamin Morin, he's my friend. We get Rebecca Chernek. We know you're the Hawk. I'm the Hawk. And then Laura Berman. Hello, everyone. Hey, Becky. Good to see you. Glad you could be here. I'm telling you, they are all about this conversation tonight. Hey, Rod. Good. I'm glad you're here. Joe Caruso. Hello, everyone. He has got a heck of a nice book there on how to go ahead and negotiate and close some good deals. Hey, from Vancouver, Chris the Credit God. You know him, guys? Good
No, I don't think I have.
No.
You do now.
Yeah.
And then we have, I like this, good energy. That's what Benjamin said. Larry Feldman's here tonight, the best salesperson or sales trainer in America. I was going to say the world. Probably the world. Oh my God, there's Ted Ings. He's here tonight. Fixed Ops Roundtable Master. There he is. And Batgirl. That's me. And Ted Ings is saying hello. We are doing this. And let's see what else. Michael Webb. Hey guys, I think you know Michael Webb, don't you?
We do. We know Michael Webb very well.
Yeah.
I thought you did. Maybe you can explain how you know him.
Yeah. So
And Stephen Wastner. I always get that name. I'm going to get that better when we have our next live next week. So let's talk a little bit about Michael Webb. Who wants to talk about Michael?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. So Michael Webb is with a company called WebBuy, which ironically it's one of our partners, our preferred partners when it comes to digital retailing, which I know is kind of why we're all here tonight.
That's right.
The cool thing with WebBuy, WebBuy started a number of years ago. It was launched out of Billings, Montana. And Steve Zabala is the original owner of WebBuy, and Peter Billion, the owner of the Billion Auto Group, is one of the original investors into WebBuy. And it came to my dealership, and they said, "Hey, how are we going to incorporate this, make it work with our sales process? And in the beginning for us, it was kind of like a lead source, like, oh, okay, we're getting leads off of this. And then we started to see the real ability with it to actually have it be a full digital retailing tool. And the levels that it's gotten to today are just phenomenal. And Mike is our go-to guy for that. He is our rock with all of it. Every time we have a question, he is the man, and he is just phenomenal with everything that he gives to us.
Well, there you go, Michael. What do you think about that? Hopefully, he's
Gonna
going to
cost you,
comment
Michael.
soon.
Right.
He's still around. I love how these guys pop on and they pop back off. But anyway, it's always good that they're there and listening into, and there's a bunch listening into what you have to say. And I got to tell you right now, we riled this thing up. I've got them going, talking on Facebook. I've got them talking on LinkedIn. Let's talk a little bit about this digital retailing. And I mean, what the heck is digital retailing? How do you all see it playing out? And I mean, just don't jump up and answer that question. But Jim Thayer, let's start with you. How do you see this digital retailing playing out?
Well, I think that it was a preferred process that many of the customers had out there, and been growing and growing year after year, and frankly been easier to do as technology improves and whatnot. Thinking back the last 5-10 years or so, and then clearly the pandemic just created such a need for digital retailing that it just exploded all over the place, and not so much as a function of a want, but a necessity. And it's really, in a nutshell, being able to provide as much of the transaction to the customer that they want online. It can be a little bit, it can be everything, but really it's turning it back to the consumers as it relates to how they want to do business, and the dealerships no longer are saying we don't do it like that. It's we'll do what you want to do because we know that that's in our best interest, and you're going to create a lot of happy customers in doing it.
So let me ask you this. I had a conversation. I'm not going to tell you who with, but the conversation was about OEMs pushing digital retailing.
Well, they have been for some time, and will continue to do so. But just my opinion is, I think if they just leave it to the retailers, they'll find that it happens a lot more effective than them trying to figure out how we're going to do it. You see, Lincoln stores now doing soup to nuts, not really even talking to anybody, coming in and buying a car and taking it home. That's innovation. But again, we're the retailers, and it's always been our job and always will be our job to figure out what the consumer needs and deliver that. Respectfully, the OEMs, are going to have their input, but it's up to the dealers to figure it out and really make it happen when the rubber meets the road.
When the rubber meets the road, that's so true. It's like, okay, well, we have this idea, and we would love for you to go ahead and implement this process, this digital retailing. And meanwhile, some of these guys, I mean, I don't know, when's the last time they actually have been in a dealership and have worked really in the trenches.
Well,
So
they're trying to do something and ignoring scale. Some stores are selling 40 or 50 cars a month. Some are selling 400 or 500. And to think that they can come up with a process that works in both of those environments, it's just too far up in the clouds to really be able to implement.
So I've got a good question here, and I'm not sure if you guys can answer this. I think I can, because I think I've dug into it just a bit, but I bet some of you guys probably can. Let's mention how gross is built. I also asked about the 3-day rescission question. And I know this is coming in from Facebook. Pennsylvania opened that up. A high gross deal could be impacted. How do you want to handle that question, guys?
Let's mention how high this was built.
So is he, I guess he's referring to the right of rescission for the consumer to come back and return the vehicle.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, at the end of the day, what it's really going to come down to is how you approach your clients and how you get them to buy versus selling. I think a lot of people focus on just selling the customer and less time focused on helping them buy. When it comes down to it, you know, they need to tell themselves why they're buying. And when you do that, when you create that, you have a lot better overall experience, not only for them, but for yourself. And you probably have a lot of people not coming back to return their vehicle unless it's something just really they couldn't live with. But typically, if you've done your job and you fish that out ahead of time, not saying it's going to work every time, you should be able to resolve that pretty easily.
You know, another thing with that, Becky, too, we found is when you create a buyer instead of having a selling mentality, when buyers make decisions, they're more likely to stick with those decisions versus being sold. You see a lot of times people are wanting to back out. I'm going to use a late night deal, for example. You've got a sales manager pushing and pushing and pushing, and they finally say, okay, it's 11 o'clock at night. They get in the finance office. They're pushed into making a decision or something along those lines. Then they back out. When you have digital retailing, they're at their computer.
Right.
They're making the decision. They're the ones saying, okay, I've spent my 14 hours doing my research. I've gone through every dealership. I've looked through everyone's price. I know this is what I want. I'm going to go through and I'm going to take my steps. I'm going to choose my bank. I'm going to choose which approval I want to go with. I'm going to choose which products I want to go with. So you're a little more sound in your decisions as opposed to being sold something, because right now you're a buyer, and these digital marketing or digital retailing, you're sitting in front of your computer with a lot of this new digital retailing, and you're buying a car at your fingertips. Now, granted, a lot of people still want to come in and do those test drives, but they're the one making the decision. So I think you're going to see rescission back off a little bit on that.
Well, from what I understood, and again, I am not the attorney here, and I always make it a point to make sure that everyone knows that's not my role. But here's what I did find out about this 3-day rescission. Now, every state is somewhat different, right? I imagine. But I know in the state of Georgia, and that's kind of where I'm, well, almost from, Maryland, I don't know if they practice the same thing, but I do know that if you sign a contract, even though you have not taken delivery of the vehicle, that there's no 3-day rescission. So here's what I say to a dealer: fact check, find out what your state requires.
Right.
But I also went in and I went a step further and I talked to, and I'm not going to go into names, but I suggested a dealer do their fact finding, contact dealer track, contact Route 1. But when you're signing someone up in a digital environment, then it is the physical address of the dealer. So that, again, because of that, we don't have the 3-day rescission. Again, you might want to check with your particular states on that. But if we're e-contracting, that is being done, from my understanding, at the dealership premises, physical address. That's the whole idea behind this e-contracting, which I would hope that some of these dealers are going to start using more of, right, when it comes to the digital to signing up digitally. Melissa says, no matter how the buyer ends up getting the car delivered or in store, if you treat them right and listen to them, they will never want out of the car. I've done virtual deals for many years and never had a car returned.
I agree.
I agree with that.
100%.
So Becky, if I can use an example, it's not
Please.
apples to apples, but several years ago in a previous organization I worked for, we put a 3-day return onto a CPO, the CPO units that we had out there. And we went back and forth a lot on whether they're going to use it or not. And turns out that we basically wasted a lot of time because a very small percentage of them actually want to bring it back. And what we found is, and I think this is kind of what we're talking about with digital retailing, is it's about giving the customer more control, and it's about the customer experience. And so in positions that I've been in, and Jim just whispered the same thing to me, I don't know that I've ever, a customer wanted to bring a vehicle back, shortly after them purchasing it, I don't know that I've ever said no. And so this process allows the customer to gain control. And with regard to the grosses, there is something to be said for, being consistent in your pricing, online, and then showing the value in what it is that you're charging. And then especially with the digital retailing is the ease of purchase, right? Giving that customer control. And, I don't have a lot of facts to back it up. But my sense of it is what I've seen is you're able to justify holding a little bit more gross. And what I've also seen is that transparency on the front end really opens up the back end and the opportunity to sell product that will protect the investment that the customer's putting in the vehicle.
So we have Benjamin Morin, who I know he protects his gross as much as he possibly can. And you guys probably may or may not know Benjamin. I've known Benjamin for many, many years, and he is one heck of an aggressive sales associate, and he's always out to protecting his gross profit. And again, he's talking about options to cancel are dangerous. This is a whole new environment that we are talking about right now. Granted, right now we're selling cars at MSRP plus. That's what's happening out there. But, at the end of the day, I mean, when we are inviting this type of process, it's being more consistent in that approach and how we treat the customer and wanting customers, to come back time and time again. You take the sledgehammer to that customer, they sooner or later figure stuff out, and they're like, there's no way in heck I'm gonna do that one again. And so I think it's important that, yeah, we are here to, sell more cars and to protect the gross profit. But at the end of the day, so let me kind of share this one with you. I remember years back, and we were, I don't know, whatever product it was. Maybe it was a theft protection at the time. All right. I'm really kind of dating myself here. But so I'm in this one part of the country, and I'm not going to tell you where I was, Benjamin, but pretty darn close to where you are. And I just know that this gal, she just wanted to charge, like sticker price, then some, and then some on this protection. And I'm like, so how many of those policies do you sell that way? Because you got to pick and choose your customers, right? That are really going to buy that product at that kind of a markup, like thousands of dollars. It was just crazy. And I'm like, you've got to be more consistent in that approach. Don't we want customers coming back to the dealership after they buy a car? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I can speak from experience firsthand. When you try to do things like that, that appetite goes away very quickly for the consumer. And if that gets out, your dealership can be in a whole lot of trouble real fast, because people do not forget when the wool got pulled over their eyes, right? Now they love to rag on us, and that's part of the deal. We all accept that. But ultimately, having I wouldn't say a fixed pricing method, but having something that's reasonably priced, where you're in a general zone, is important as a group, as an organization, because now it's easier for consumers to compare, because sometimes they compare notes with friends. A friend bought a new car right down the street, neighbor bought another new car, and they said, hey, get to talking. Oh yeah, I bought the service contract. Oh yeah, how much you paid for yours? It was $3,000. Oh really? Mine was only $2,000. Well, why is there such a difference? If you start explaining, the customer comes back and wants to know a reason, and you go, well, so-and-so bought a truck and you bought a car, you can validate that a little bit, that difference, because there's a bigger vehicle to account for and other things, right? But if you're going, well, I bought one for $5,000 and I bought a truck and he bought a truck and he paid $3,000 and I paid $5,000, well, there's probably not a $2,000 difference between truck to truck. So I would say, it's important to make money. That's what we're there for, to be profitable and to help ourselves and our families. But ultimately, you have to have some kind of a general pricing structure as a group, as an organization, to avoid these pitfalls.
And to
Okay.
piggyback a little bit on that, anytime, a price exceeds value, you're going to enter a dangerous area. So a lot of these dealers, especially with their products, if they're putting them into a reinsurance or a retro, they want to make sure that they're priced in a way that is going to be advantageous for the customer as well as for the dealer. So if you don't have that transparency with pricing with your customers from deal to deal, or at least a set guideline or amount above cost that you can sell it for, you are asking to open that can of worms. And that's something that dealers don't want to have to deal with, because then you get into discrimination, other things like that. So a lot of times having, rules and regulations and set policies in your stores and your groups is a very good way to go with things like this.
Yeah, I just I think that this is a really important conversation, and I get that right now we're doing everything that we can to profit on every single transaction that we can because we're limited in supply. But at the same token, there's a price to pay for everything. I mean,
Yeah.
what comes up must come down. And for me, I'm going to do the right thing. I mean, of course, I'm going to take advantage of but to a point, right? And
Sure.
at the end of the day, we have to look at it and say, okay, is my customer coming back again? And I get it, Benjamin. There's no inventory, and we have to make the best of every single deal that we get, no doubt about it. But when we start clobbering people over their heads, these guys are not going to forget about it. It isn't any different though. Like when, we sold, or not me, but someone else sold, I don't know, theft product for like $2,000 or $3,000. I'm like, what are you doing? Maybe you can get away with this 1 or 2 times, 3 times, 5 times in a month. But that's coming back. That's going to come back on you one way or the other. That's my thinking on that whole thing. And right now, I think it is important. I have seen some of the biggest dealers. I have seen some giants go from selling 700 cars a month to like 250.
Oh,
And
yeah.
why do you suppose that is?
It's reputation. It's everything.
Damn
And now with
straight.
social media, it's easier to get killed.
Yes. And this is why it's important. And I think that, we just have a better understanding of how things are, I don't know, being more consistent with our clients, our customers, and looking. And I don't know, Benjamin, I know you're saying it's all about growth. So what is the growth? It isn't, this is how these guys are, been brought up in the business, right? And they're looking, look, every deal, I'm a salesperson, I'm going to make the best out of everything. So I quite get that. But at the end of the day, you got to remember these customers are either coming back or they're not coming back. Then what's going to happen? And Mark Jurin, it is more that digital retailing, it is a modern retailing anytime, anywhere, anyhow the client wishes.
I really like the way you said that.
That's great.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yes. And then Melissa, she's going on to have a long-term clients. You have to set up each car deal with consideration to their next deal in a few years. Their future equity position means everything. Therefore, fair profits are going to be the key. So it's just interesting because how everyone looks at this, right? And I think this is really important to talk about. But as we get into this whole idea of digital retailing, we also, I've got to share this. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt myself. Steven says, until the experience at the dealership is as easy as the online experience, the relevance of dealerships will remain in question. I think one of the gentlemen is spot on when he says it is all about making it easy for the customer to do business with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Couldn't agree more.
And then
Becky,
we have,
if I can add to that, I think that as you transition from that online experience to the dealership experience, I might really like what he just said. It's important to allow the customer to go as far down that process as they want to, they're comfortable with, and then being able to pick them up where they left off in the dealership and move them forward. That what I've seen is the frustration comes in having to start that process all over again. And so as training and as the tools develop, it's very, very important to be able to have that continuum and to make sure that you're not wasting time during that sales process.
You know, again, I that's kind of like one of my pet peeves, if you will. Why, first of all, why are we doing digital retailing? What is it that the dealer hopes to achieve? What are we doing? Is it a lead? Are we there to generate leads? Are we there to go ahead and create a more pleasant transactional experience? What are we doing and why are we doing it? And then from there, okay, if we have this online experience and then customers are coming back into the dealership just to start the process all over again, can you tell me why are we doing that? That is just absolutely nuts.
Right.
You know, Becky, you had Josh Letzis on 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And he talked about his digital retailing tool and how his sales team used it as almost like creating their pencil. And a lot of times, if you have the right partners with your digital retailing, that's exactly the process that it should be, where someone starts at home. And when they walk through those doors at your dealership, you can pick their deal up exactly from where they left it off. It allows them to feel like they're in control, which at the end of the day, consumers want that today. Consumers want to buy. That's why Amazon Buy Now button is the most popular Amazon button. I use it probably 5 times a week where I click Buy Now. I don't even think about it. I just click Buy Now and boom, it shows up at my front door. Consumers want to be able to walk into these stores and pick up exactly where they left off. They don't want to start over. They're doing that research at home because they don't like being there.
And Becky, one last point with this digital retailing. This isn't something where the customers want. Despite the news stories, the research tells us customers don't want 100% online. They still want to come in. They still want to talk to somebody. They still want to see the car. They still want to drive the car. And they still want to make sure it fits for their needs. You can look at something online all you want, but at the end of the day, when it comes to the purchase like this, you're going to want to actually experience it and make sure it's the right decision. So dealers don't need to be afraid of this. This is just another way for you to cast your net out there and acquire more people and spend less time kicking tires and more time pushing that transaction volume up. And that's really what it comes down to. As we get inventory back, the people who made the adjustments, they're going to kill it. And they're going to bypass the people in their market faster than they can blink. And that's because they took the time to get ready for what's next. So customers still want to engage in person, but at the end of the day, you have to engage on this platform. It's not going away.
I don't think it's definitely not going away. And I have seen some of the technology just in the past 3 years alone and where we are from where I was 3 years ago to where we are today. It is absolutely amazing how quick this technology has ramped up and, you know, really given the customer the ability to shop via online, however, which way that they want to. And speaking of which, let's talk about CarMax for just a moment. I mean, are these guys successful or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy what they've been able to do over the last years. It's just phenomenal.
What did Josh say? They were selling 400 or 500 cars a month down the street from him.
Yeah. And CarMax didn't we just look up something earlier? They sold like their 1 millionth car.
Oh, it was Carvana.
Or Carvana, sorry. I was thinking a different one. But I mean, CarMax, Carvana, Vroom, all
Well,
of
you
these.
know what they're saying. Carvana is not going to be successful, right?
They're gonna. They keep saying it, but the numbers show that they're doing it. I mean, I've noticed this, you know, Becky, years ago, you know, 4 or 5 years ago when I started thinking about digital retailing, you know, the pushback that I got from so many people is like, oh, it's not going to work in our part of the country. Oh, that only works in big cities. And you're seeing that that's not a truthful statement anymore. Everyone wants the ability to at least do something online. There's a reason people do 8 to 14 hours of research online. Imagine if a customer went to your dealership's website and they were able to start playing with a car, and then they could look at it and go, oh, hey, I can get myself approved. Oh, here's 3 different approvals. I want to select this one. Okay, so now I know my interest rate. I know my term. I know what vehicle I want to buy. They can decide if they want to move forward with digital retailing, or they can say, hey, I want to set an appointment and go look at the car now, but at least I come in loaded with information. And now when I go to that dealer, I know I don't have to start from ground zero. I can walk in, they have all my information. I can skip all of this rigmarole of, oh, is this the car you want? Is that the color you really want? Oh, are you sure that's the one you want? Because they know what they want.
Amen. Somebody's finally in my head. You know, been saying this, and it's like, is it just me or what? Why aren't we getting this? I mean, what's so hard to understand? Why not give some customers some information so that way they have a better understanding what's going on? You know, haven't we said over the years that an educated buyer is a better buyer?
Yeah, it's easier. You don't have to explain everything.
The
Right.
educated buyer, when it comes to sales, typically knows what a fair value is. So they're
Yeah.
there because they think it's a fair value.
Yeah.
When they get to finance, they're more educated. They've read up a little bit and they're happy. Happy buyers spend more money. So going back to grosses, if you're being transparent, you're doing things the right way, you're gonna have happier customers. We all know the happiest customer spends the most money. The guy who leaves the dealership that you grossed the most is typically your happiest person, and they will tell everyone in the world to come back to you.
Gosh,
just-
they're the best customers. I mean, to
They
tell
are.
you, right? A happy customer is a repeat customer is a fantastic customer, right? And that's how we make a living. I mean, that's what it's all about. You know, enjoying having a better customer experience and making. And it is about retention. It really is. It's not just about this car deal today, and then I don't know, we'll just forget about it. And then let's go on to our next deal because sooner or later you're going to want that customer coming back. I mean, that's definitely something we have to pay attention to. I've got some more comments here. Everyone is loving this conversation. Melissa, I say it's half and half. Half want to go drive it and sign in person. Half are fine with having a car delivered from out of the state and e-contracting. Both options should be available. I couldn't agree with you more. It is all about options. Mark Zabrowski, I think I got that right, Mark. It cannot be all digital retail or marketing for the next 30 years. This is still an incredible dynamic with personal communication and the ability to communicate. I'm certain that the 40 and 50 somethings want to personally communicate. Great stuff and great communication, though, Becky. That is the key. So I think so too. I'm not, you know, one of the things that I talk about all the time is that this technology doesn't replace the human factor. I don't know what it is that it just really enhances everything. You know, anytime I can get to that customer sooner in the process, the better, right? I mean, I'm just utilizing the tools that are available to us to really make us a lot more efficient in what we're doing. So I get where you're going with that, Mark. But I got to tell you, we're not getting away from the human factor, are we, guys?
No.
No.
It's just another way to get people to you. And sometimes they do it all online, but most of the time they want to come back in and see a person, talk to a human being. Just like that woman you had spoken with, Jermaine Toyota,
Yeah,
finance manager.
Dora. Yeah,
Yeah, Dora. She said they still want to talk to a human being. They still want to have a conversation. The reason dealers are afraid of this is because either they haven't taken the time to hone their craft or they have the wrong tools at their disposal. And both are easily solvable problems. And the great news is they can do it as soon as they want to, and they could set themselves up for success for the long term. And that's really what you want. You want to be around for all the purchases, not just one.
So Christopher Campbell says, RK, Carvana is not doing it, not profitable. Customer returning cars because the reconditioning process is almost non-existent. Their higher prices don't even matter when the long-term value isn't there. Just remember that, everyone. But I'm not saying maybe you're right. Carvana may just be a flop. But again, the genie is out of the bottle, Christopher. So in my opinion, it may not be Carvana, but I'm telling you right now, if it's not Carvana, could it be Amazon? That's what I'm talking about. This isn't, I think you said it, Tony, it's not going away. However, which way you want to look at it, slice it, dice it. However, I mean, still Carvana has sold a lot of freaking cars the way that they have positioned themselves, right, wrong, or indifferent. I mean, just like I remember when I was running a Saturn dealership back in the day. And this is why you and I get along together, Jim. Just saying, guys. But that wasn't supposed to work either, right? Because there's no way everyone's going to pay full retail on a vehicle when they could shop for a car. But you know what? That concept did take off. It may not have been successful after the fact. There were other things, there were other factors going on, but people were buying into that one pricing concept. That's what they wanted to do. They didn't want to hassle. I don't know what's so hard to figure out, to be honest with you. Maybe it's me, but I'm like, guys,
Well, I think,
what's so hard to figure out about this whole thing?
and I think that events and companies change the conversation, right? And so
Yeah.
Jim mentioned it earlier with the pandemic. It accelerated this desire to have something out there, and the customers need to at least start the process online.
Right.
Companies like Carvana show us what's possible,
That's
but
right.
the traditional dealership model, I believe, is best positioned to be able to take advantage of the experiences that a Vroom or Carvana bring to the table and not make the same mistakes that they're making. The other thing too is, you talk about employees, it changes who you're looking for as far as who's going to be customer facing. And I think that the struggle that we've had is going from a traditional sales model with traditional salespeople, and the way that they do it is in the dealership, and that's what they're comfortable with, is now the customer's changing and they're wanting to do things online. The leads are coming in. And so you have to have a workforce that is adept and comfortable with the technology piece of it and can move forward and help us succeed in the future with that online presence.
Well, I'll tell you right now, we have gotten so far down this tunnel on whether or not how digital retailing is going to put us in front of that customer sooner rather than later, which I think is really very important. And we need to be put. Look, I've been doing F&I for a long time, okay, and I know for me that getting in front of that customer sooner rather than later is more ideal. And when I can, and when I do, I'm putting more deals together. And so, a little bit about what we were supposed to be talking about a little bit more of is the fact that, okay, well, speaking of which, should these desk managers, here we are, should they be submitting deals to the lender? And I know some of the stuff is coming in. Maybe the customer had submitted some of the credit application, if you will, online, and it's either sitting in the CRM, and the sales manager gets it and starts working the deal. And next thing you know, oh, they're submitting the deal to the lender.
Mhm.
So is that a good way to be? Is that what we want to happen?
Becky, I think it's going to be derivative of your dealership's processes. So some dealers can make it work very well. I've seen some dealers where their stair steps go salesperson, sales manager, then you move into finance. I've seen some where you go from sales to finance to the desk. I think if you have a good experienced process in your store where your sales managers know finance, it makes sense to maybe have them submit them to your captive, or if you have a preferred lending network put in place based on your soft pulls, if you're utilizing your soft pulls properly, have a structure of, okay, hey guys, these are the 2 or 3 banks I want you to send based on your structure, and then let finance take over from there. Because at the end of the day, finance is going to be the one that's going to be making those phone calls. They're going to be the ones building those relationships with their lenders. And if you have the right processes in place, either way can work well for you. It just is going to be really derivative of what you have set up in your store, what process you have, and ensuring that everyone is really following that process from the top down, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think it does need to come from the top down, but okay, so I have seen, I guess we're all over the place in many dealerships across the country. We're just, no matter, it. The minute we go in one store is doing, hell, you can have the same dealership group and they're all doing it different in different stores, right? Nobody's the same. And it's like, really? And so how do you train to that? But that's another topic for another day, I think. But so we're talking about, okay, so these guys are able to submit a deal. Who's validating any of this information? How is that happening? Is it?
That's an excellent question. I'll let these guys speak on it more, from a
Yeah.
higher level
Yeah.
on what they'd like to see at the executive level. But on the ground level, you get going, you maybe skip some steps, you're trying to push deals. We've all done it. Trying to figure out the stuff on the fly. You're trying to ask questions of the customers while they're signing in your office, or on the, sales floor. So at the end of the day, that's where the accountability of creating a solid process that's, going to allow you to bend but not break, really becomes important. But ultimately, I mean, it really does come down to following the steps, putting in a repeatable process, just like a professional athlete. You shoot that free throw every time. You throw that ball the same way every time, regardless of what's going on around you, and creating those repeatable steps that allow your organization to thrive. But I'll let Jim and Danny talk a little bit more about that.
Okay.
So, as it relates to the desk or F&I, I don't think it's kind of like what I said a little bit ago about the OEMs. They're not far enough. We're not individually far enough into the trenches in each individual store to know what's best. Couldn't agree more that if you have an inexperienced sales manager submitting deals to the lender, and the structure just isn't what is necessary in order to get that deal bought, then you're blowing things up. Whereas from a time standpoint, if you have that F&I trained sales manager, been doing it for a long time, knows what car he's putting the people on, knows what that deal's going to look like when it comes out, then it's a speed thing for the consumer to allow that submission to happen off the desk, and done properly, it can be a win. But it's not one size fits all.
Well, I think that if you're going to ask that a desk manager is submitting the deal to the lender, you better know that they know what they're doing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to go ahead and put a guy up at the desk and say, okay, have at it. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. We're selling cars today.
I've seen that, but it's not much fun.
Well, it gets really ugly because let me tell you something. Here's something that I'm thinking through. It's like, okay, are you guys getting off your butt? And I don't mean this in a mean way. I really don't. I am talking about a process, and I'm talking about, are we fact finding? Are we getting out there, reviewing the deal to make sure the deal is correct, whether that be online, doing an interview with that customer, or whether or not that happens in the dealership. And I'm not seeing that happening, to be quite frank with you. And then here's the other thing. So Vince knows, oh, here I go again with this interview. So what doesn't really happen? And so we talk about, okay, well, here goes this desk manager and he's submitting the deals. And I can tell you how many times I see the desk manager submitting a deal and the customer doesn't even make any income. How do you submit a deal when the customer doesn't have a job? What are we doing? No wonder it got turned down everywhere. But then I wonder, where is the talent? The talent is supposed to be out there interviewing the customer, reviewing the transaction to find out, what are we doing? Is there a way to go ahead and put this deal together? So I don't know. I think that we do have some F&I people who see the benefit in getting out there and reviewing the deal and fact finding to make sure it's correct. But I see a whole heck of a lot that aren't doing it. And then I see these sales managers and speak up, because it's not all about me. That's for darn sure. But I see sales managers that aren't fact finding and they're submitting deals. And then, of course, then we have these deals that are being shotgun everywhere.
Right.
Becky, a big thing, you're hitting something right on the head there. It's early management intervention, but not just with the customer. It needs to be early management intervention from your F&I managers being present at the sales desk. In F&I, so many managers get stuck in their office. Mm-hmm. They're not out there with their sales team. They're not out there with the sales managers. We've created this divide between the desk and F&I. We all forget that we're part of sales. There's an F&I department and there's a sales department, but collectively you're variable ops. You are there to sell cars. That's what everyone does. The sale of the car comes first. And you have so many F&I managers that sit in their office, even if they don't have a deal and they're doing CIT or they're, reading ESPN or whatever they're actually doing back there, instead of being at the desk. Because a lot of times, a lot of this can be cured if you have more than one finance manager in a store and you're not doing a deal. Be at the desk. Do your CITs from the desk. Be up there involved in these deals. Do that early management intervention. Be sitting there with your sales managers. And if they don't have a good finance background, be training them at the same time on where to send these deals. Work with them. Allow them to do it. But work with them hand in hand when you have the ability to.
So Matthew, I'll ask you a question.
Yeah.
We're talking about the desk or F&I. How do you change that process up when it's an online transaction? In other words, customer hadn't even come into the store. They've been looking, they submit the credit app online. This is what they're looking at. Who does that? F&I or the desk?
So the credit apps, a lot of times they come in as like a lead. So you treat them, a lot of times in my experience with the system that I used, it's called WebBuy. It came in as a direct lead into our CRM. And from there, our BDC vetted it really quickly just to make sure, okay, here it is. They'd go over, hey, I've got this, this, and this in the deal. Then they would take their proper step. They'd get with the desk and say, hey, we've got this lead comes in. It looks like they've submitted their credit app. How would you like to proceed from here? And a lot of times, depending on your store, our process was pretty simple. It went directly to finance. Hey guys, it's already been submitted. Here's where they're at. What do you want us to do with it? Well, let's get the appointment. Let's get them in here. Or if they've utilized their online tool, they may have already set an appointment.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these retail things, you can actually set the appointment right there. Set it, have a time, you come in, you know exactly who you're meeting with. And then collectively as a team, depending on your process, in our store, it was finance. Hey guys, I went out there, introduced myself. Hey, I'm Matt, I'm the finance manager. I want to thank you for, going through our digital retailing tool today. I understand that this is what you're looking for. I see that you already selected Bank of America at 7.17%. Before I introduce you to Peter, who's my sales guy, do you have any questions for me?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't. I just want to drive the car. Great. I'm going to go ahead and turn him over to you. I've already got all your information. I'm going to make sure everything's tight. That way, when you're ready to move forward, we're ready for you. And then you can go from there. That was our process.
Mm-hmm.
Some stores may have it where the sales manager handles it. But again, it really boils down to what is your process in your store and are you sticking to that process? Because there's so many times that we put a process in place and it sounds great and no one does it. And who's holding those people accountable? The way? You're right. It's not a process. It's a piece of paper with a list of things on it. It's not a process.
Becky, I find it's best to just think of it as a management team instead of a sales manager or a finance manager. When I was at Van Tile, we cross-trained both desk and F&I. And the reason we did that was because it brought to light what our days were like on both sides of the ball. And more importantly, it brought an understanding and appreciation for what everybody's doing in the dealership. And as a team, we would work together to get deals done. As a team, we would work together to close deals on the floor. As a team, we would focus on the main objective, which was winning for everybody, the salesperson, the management staff, and the general management and beyond, right? So I think if we took more of that team approach and just took away those titles and just said, you're part of the management staff, I think that could solve a lot of problems. And cross-training is a great way to do that. Plus,
well, one of the things too, I have to agree with when we had the conversation with Dora and, when we have a process that we put in place that we can all agree to from beginning to the end, we don't have any CIT issues. We don't have all this disruption. So that way we don't have customers coming back for re-signs and all this crazy stuff that normally is going on in these dealerships. Like this is like an everyday occurrence. Well, it shouldn't be an everyday occurrence. If we have a process that we're putting in place to assure that that transaction is straight, that we're uploading or the dealer documents and we're making people accountable to making sure that this information is correct even before it makes its way into that F&I office, we have a sealed jacket. I mean, how this stuff ever gets its way into that F&I office and it's not correct is an abomination. It is stupid. And it just infuriates me. If you can tell, it just does. It's like, why are we doing this when we can have these other tools technology that can just simplify this entire process. Do you know how many thousands and thousands of dollars we could be saving these they could save themselves, for crying out loud, in
Right.
this IT and chargeback issues if they would just get their together in this process. So I've got a dear friend of mine. I have to share this with y'all, Stephen Apicella, and I can't believe he's around. He's been in the hospital like for a couple. I mean, he's been there for a few days, if not a week. And here he is. Solve from the customer's desired experience and work backwards from there. Too often we separate the sales process from the service process when the combination of the two is the very essence that separates and elevates the brick and mortar dealer from the 100% only online retailer. Oh, sorry, I can't print. Rhetorical. There I am. Questions is the auto retail industry's mission to only sell a car or also earn a reoccurring customer. Actions speak louder than words. Digital retailing is not the end game. Digital life cycle is the truth. And he's right. That's what it's all about. I couldn't agree with you more, Stephen. I'm glad you were able to be here. And Jason, many desk managers have their sales blinders on. They're focused on selling a car, not always on protecting the dealership, increasing income, adding income, time on job residents. Hello, anyone paying attention? So my question to you is this. So when that happens and we're not doing our due diligence to make sure that this information that is being submitted to the lender is correct or not trying to put anyone on the spot here, but I have a funny feeling that dealers are signing these lender agreements.
Mm-hmm.
Who's on the hook for what? If in fact the customer has a repo and that POI doesn't check out. Somebody tell me.
You own it.
Do we own it or what? And you know what? I wouldn't want to be owning this stuff right about now and 2 years from now
Nope.
when it all comes
Especially for what you sold it for yesterday.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's somebody's going to take ownership of this stuff, these big fat grosses. And meanwhile, if in fact we're not doing what we need to do to make sure that this information is correct to begin with, I mean, to tell you one thing I want to say too, it is still up to an F&I person. Wouldn't you think, to protect the dealership assets?
Sure.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's the number one priority first. Protect the dealer's asset and then worry about everything else.
And it's
Okay.
part of the job. It's their last line of defense before it goes. And so, yeah, my dad always said an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? So invest in that prevention.
I just think that, you know, if we just work smarter, I loved where you guys were going, making sure that we're putting a plan together, that we're working with the team to put this, whatever plan that may be in your dealership together, because, you know, bringing an outsider in for that second look to help with that whole thing is really going to make a big difference how you put this process together to really help you to sell more cars, to maximize profits, get customers coming back for more, reducing CIT, reducing chargebacks, all of it. So in a last comment, this has been aggressive tonight. Let me tell you, we've got some good comments tonight. This is good. I would feel really good about tonight. In any kind of lasting comments, what would you like to share?
So I'll let the guys talk, but real quickly, just wanted to share with your viewers, we are going to give out a free guide on how to survive digital retailing. So comment below in your comment section, #survival guide, if you would like a copy. So please just #survival guide if you'd like a free copy of how to survive digital retailing moving forward.
There you go. That's awesome. Contact the group at info@theautomotiveconsultants.com. And is that right? Do I have that correct?
Perfect.
Okay. So this is it. So I let's see, we have another comment, and sales manager checking credit and getting a real transaction, or leave it to F&I to see if sales has a deal. I guess, you know, we're never going to agree on everything, but I got to tell you, I'm for one, I love that F&I person needs to be out there, needs to be involved, needs to be on the desk. Two eyes are always better than one. Two heads are always better than one. And being up at the desk, getting involved sooner rather than later. Let's not lose that talent. Let's not, this technology, let it help to support what we're doing, how we do our stuff, and just make us better at what we do and engage
Yeah.
the customer way.
My
Right?
last comment on that, Becky, will be if you're utilizing your programs to their extent, most credit programs out there, Credco, 700 Credit, they're offering you the ability to do a soft pull right in your CRM. It doesn't even have to get to finance or a sales manager at that point. When that deal is pushed and the sales manager can see what's going on there, they can simply look at that soft pull and kind of have an idea of what they're dealing with right there. So again, a team atmosphere, but utilize the programs you have in-house already, because most dealers aren't doing that.
They're not. I mean, I gotta comment on that as well. Soft pulls. I mean, why wouldn't you do a soft freaking pull? Why in the world wouldn't you want to know where you're at in the deal? What the heck is wrong with people? And then they bring the customer in, and BDC or the internet manager brings the customer in, and meanwhile nobody knows anything, and of course they don't qualify for nothing. And it's like, oh, well, can we get him in any kind of car? No, I don't think so. And this poor customer is only driven like 2 hours, right? Or whatever, and then find out. I mean, it's just a miserable experience. So, and then, and then here again, the dealer is not putting a car deal together. It doesn't make much sense to me either. I like the soft pull. I think, hell, I like soft pull 10. I don't know what year is it now? 2016, I think, when I wrote an article about it. I don't know about soft pulls then. I liked it then. I still like it now. Go figure. Well, guys, I want to thank you again for being here on my live talk with Becky Chernek. And I know these guys are going to reach out to you. And I know too, you're not that far from where I live. And I certainly hope that maybe we can get together, have dinner or something, or lunch or something. It would be great.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Becky.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
everything.
Ken. I appreciate it. And it was absolutely a lot of fun. Thank you. Thank
Our
you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.